Public microphone is turned off. Okay, now that we've got that housekeeping out of the way, I now would like to call the BZA meeting of the City of Decatur, Indiana to order. We've got some housekeeping to take care of first. The minutes of the previous meeting of February 21st, 2017 were distributed. I need a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
I make a motion to approve those minutes.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded to approve the minutes of the February 21st meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's approved unanimously. I had previously passed around the proof of publication for the Decatur Daily Democrat of this meeting for you to review. Do we have any questions about the proof of publication? We need to make it a matter of public record. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second? Moved and seconded that the proof of publication is made a matter of record. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that is made a matter of record. Additionally, I passed around affidavit of notice of public hearing that was distributed to neighboring property owners for both Jerry Geimer and Mobilite, who are the two applicants this afternoon. Do we have any questions about those? Those need to be made a matter of public record also. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded to make both notices of a public hearing a matter of public record. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those approved unanimously. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Now, we're going to move forward with the first application this evening. Jerry Geimer, 710 North 5th Street, Decatur, Indiana, is requesting variances on the side and front yard setback requirements to build a house at 927 Line Street, Decatur, Indiana. Refer to City Code 150.045 and 150.046 for the side and front setback requirements. Is there somebody here, Jerry, are you here, who would like to present your application to the board?
I'm sorry, what's that?
Would you like to present your application to the board, please?
Yes.
Would you step forward to the microphone and identify yourself for the record?
Jerry Geimer.
Okay, just briefly summarize what you would like to do and why you're making application before the board.
On the lot, it would be the north and south setbacks at 7 feet, and on the east, which would be the front facing Line Street, it would be a setback off the right-of-way 2 feet, which is 27 feet from the street.
Okay, this is one of those unique lots in the city of Decatur that is nothing square, and there is some confusion on my part about what the setbacks are. I talked to Roger earlier to make sure that we understood exactly what the variance request was. I want to ask his opinion right now.
Went down there with Jerry on that one, and like I said, that thing sits in there, and there's only 3 lots on that, in that section there, he's the middle one. And all 3 of those lots, the property line is to the center of the street. And it does the same thing on the Winchester Street side before they split those lots. So, the street pavement is roughly 30 feet like the rest of our streets. The street right-of-way on Line Street is 63 feet. From the center of the street, it's 33 feet on his side of the street and 30 feet on the other side of the street. So when he's saying he's 27 feet from the edge of the curb, in short, I mean, he's back off the street. You guys have that aerial view also?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's actually back at the brown roof, right at the duplex.
Yeah, it's duplex, yeah.
His front of his place will be lined up with that a little bit, maybe behind that even.
What is the requirement, Roger? Just on paper it says...
Well, it says 25 feet from the front property line or 55 feet from the center of the street, whichever is greater.
Okay, so Jerry's asking for a change
So he's
to,
27, he's roughly 42 feet.
and his requirement then would, or his request then would line up with that one to the north?
Correct.
The front of that building would be the same as front of your
Correct.
building?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
the requirement on the side is 10-foot setback?
It's 8, well, in the older parts, it's 8,
8,
and he's...
and Jerry's requesting for 7, so he's one foot
1 foot.
closer.
Correct.
Roger, on the front setback requirement, say that again, it's the greater of two things, two
Well,
two
either-
distances.
Is what the ordinance says, it's 55 feet
From the center
of the
line.
street, or 25 feet from the front property line, whichever is greater.
And the front property line is the center of the street as well. So it would be the greater of those two is 55 feet.
Yeah.
How close from the center of the road would Jerry's
He's gonna
property be?
He's 27 feet from the curb line, and taking that street was, you know, that the front property line is in the center of that street, it's 15 feet, he'd be 42 feet.
So he's asking for a 13-foot variance
Correct.
because it's
Well,
it's a
yeah.
variance from the greater of those two,
Yeah.
which is 55 feet from the center of the street.
Yeah, since that's kind of that irregular shaped lot through there. He's a little bit restricted on backing it up some because the AEP has an easement in the back through there.
He has to move it up closer because of the
Well,
easement?
Yeah, stay off that utility. It kind of goes, and the utility easement doesn't run with it. Real good with the back property line there, it kind of angles around in there.
So it'd be the variance would be, that you would potentially grant would be a 13-foot variance from the center of the street.
Well, and that's the verbiage that I wanted to make sure that we had correct because of the very unique set of circumstances that we have here.
Even once he gets his driveway put in, there's, you know, you can tell by that place next door, there's plenty of room for parking off the street. I mean, you'll have plenty of room in the driveway, probably to almost pull 2 cars in there back to back, or end to end. It's just kind of that bit that it's not square with the street, really,
Okay, well, I had asked for a clarification of that language from the building department. Do we have any questions from the board for the applicant?
The back of toward the easement, part of it is how much?
14 feet from the easement, and then actually what I'm going to end up doing is reversing the floor plan and putting the garage on the opposite side, which will actually bring me forward. So I will actually probably bring it forward another 6 feet away from the easement by reversing my floor plan. Because then the floor plan, the way the garage and where the bedroom is, it runs parallel with that angle of the street.
And they have a copy of that floor plan?
Yeah.
I don't think we did.
No, I didn't think we had a copy
I don't
of,
think we do.
we have the lots, we don't have the floor plan of the building.
Yeah, I'm showing that. Show 'em what you're gonna do.
This basically sits, this is the front of the street. Right now, it sits this way. By doing this, it runs with that line a lot better. So that's what I planned on, getting the back of the house away from that easement.
So you're just going to mirror the floor plan
Correct.
from what you had
It's
originally
going to be
submitted?
exactly the same, it's just going to be mirrored is all it's going to be.
Like this, right? Maybe flip it over. Except like that. So the garage
I
sticks
see.
out farther, yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Roger, on the side yard setbacks, is this an area where the setback is actually 8 feet or is it 10 feet?
The ordinance has been changed, you know, to 10 feet now,
Mm-hmm.
but in the older parts of town, like that, we correct, the those were built, a lot of them are probably 5 foot actually.
But our current ordinance requires 10 feet, so it'd be a 3-foot variance, is what he's
figuring.
figuring.
3 foot variance, correct.
So if the request, if the variance is worded so that it can be built 7 feet from the property line, does that clarify the point, rather than 1 foot from the 8-foot variance or 3 foot from the 10?
Yeah, what I would do is, on the front yard, I would just say a variance of 13 feet to allow the building to be located 42 feet from the center of Line Street, because that's the greater distance. And then on the side yards, a 3-foot variance to allow the building to be located within 7 feet of the property lines.
Okay, Roger, you in agreement with that?
Yeah.
Okay, we're back to the board again. Does the board have questions now that we've got this defined?
Nope. No, I don't.
Anything from the city attorney on the language? Okay, Jerry, do you have anything to add as we've sort of got an open discussion here?
No, that's pretty much it.
Okay. Is there anybody in attendance that is in opposition to the request? Anybody in attendance that would like to speak in support of the request? Hearing none, I want to go back to the board one more time. Do you have any additional questions?
Nope.
Okay, with that, I'm going to ask the city attorney if we're ready to read the findings.
Yes.
And I'm going to ask the city attorney one more time for the language.
The request is for a front yard variance of 13 feet to allow construction of a building 42 feet from the center of Line Street. It also is a request for variance side yard setback requirements of, and that variance would be 3 feet to allow building within 7 feet of the property lines.
Okay, that's very, in my mind, that's very definitive and not ambiguous. Okay, we're going to go ahead and read the findings. I'm going to ask a series of 6 questions of the board. We're going to poll the board. Each one will respond. Yes means they agree, no means they disagree. And we'll go through the 6, and then we'll grant the variance with that language if it is approved by the board. Item number 1. The granting of the variance will not permit any use in any district which will be in conflict with the permitted uses of the district under the terms of this chapter. John?
My first?
Yes.
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 4 yes. It will not impair an adequate supply of light and air to adjacent property.
Yes.
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 4 yes. It will not unreasonably increase the congestion in public streets.
Yes.
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 4 yes. It will not increase the danger of fire or of public safety.
Yes.
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 4 yes. It will not unreasonably diminish or impair established property values within the surrounding area.
Yes.
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 4 yes. It will not in any other respect impair the public health, comfort, safety, morals, or welfare of the inhabitants of the city.
Yes.
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 4 yes. With those votes, it is therefore the decision of this board that the petition for variance be granted or denied.
Granted.
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 Granted. Subject to conditions stated herein. One more time from the city attorney. No? Okay. So the restrictions are as we previously stated. So your request for variance and construction on that property is granted.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jerry.
We're going to pass that around for signatures before we move on to the next item. thank everybody for their patience as we went through the verbiage that was required for that variance. It is a very uniquely shaped lot, and a lot of times the construction that has been done over the years appears to be in violation, and I want to make sure that what we're doing now is fully documented. Right here. So that proof of publication and the affidavit, that proof of publication is for both items this evening. Okay, now that we've got petition number 1 taken care of, second petition this evening before the BZA is from Mobilite LLC, care of Kenneth Dunn, 120 South Riverside Plaza, Suite 1800, Chicago, Illinois, 60606, is requesting a special exception to erect a 50-foot wood pole with proposed small cell attachment at 111 North 7th Street, Decatur, Indiana. Refer to City Code Section 150.263, uses permitted by special exception. So, is an applicant here?
I am.
Can you introduce yourself for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Ken Dunn, representing Mobility. Don't worry, everybody says Mobilite. I think we should change name personally. Their address is 120 South Riverside Plaza, Suite 1800, Chicago, Illinois, 60606.
Thank you. Would you go ahead and make your presentation?
You're willing to share so I can get some out of the audience? Yeah. All right, just to give some background on this and in general our interaction with the city has been the original application for this location prior to my being hired with Mobility was located somewhere along the east side of North 7th Street. The city was concerned about that location and requested that we look at alternate locations, and I met with Roger in the fall, and we looked at possible other locations for this. One option was to try to put it on the west side of North 7th Street. As we were looking, we saw that there's an existing wood utility pole basically at the confluence of where the drive is in front of the rail depot and where the city's police department parking lot currently sits. We went over and talked to, I believe it was the police chief, was it who we spoke to, Roger?
Yeah.
He looked at that and he said he had no problem with that, and they said, you know what, we might want to expand our parking lot. So instead of you just putting it where that pole was, could you move it slightly to the east, the back of a parking lot, so if we ever expanded, we wouldn't have to move to the west of that location, the back of their parking lot. That way, if we want to pay that area, we can pull that pole. So originally this was going to be just a straight up pole replacement. The existing power, overhead, and communication lines that run that pole would run to our pole and then onto their building. The plan still is if they pull that pole, Mobility is more than happy to have them locate that overhead, the power that goes to that overhead, and the communication line from our pole to their building. We have no issue with that. The pole is more than able to handle those type of attachments when and if they decide to pull that pole. So this, in some ways, is still a pole replacement co-location situation. It's just a matter of when they decide to expand the parking lot or remove the existing pole that's there. So that's kind of the background that gets us to where we are today. Some quick introduction about who Mobility is. Mobility is a cellular infrastructure provider. We had previously also submitted 3 applications to the city for utility poles that would have sat in the road right-of-way. The Board of Works reviewed those applications and decided that they did not want the additional clutter of poles in the road right-of-way at this time. And so at this time, those 3 were actually working to co-locate as well. We do have an agreement with AEP Power to do co-locating, and we are working with them to find poles that would meet our needs to do that. So at this time, we don't look to put any other new poles in the road right-of-way for our other locations. That's new information for the mayor, I guess, but that's our goal right now. The state statute is being changed right now. It would potentially give us the power to do that, but we don't look to pursue that with Decatur. We're definitely looking to do the co-locating with the AEP. It's a relatively easy process with them, and we can do a pole replacement with AEP for a pole that meets our need of 50 foot, just like this one is, and it's relatively simple. So for those other three, when we are able to find those, we'll let you guys know, but those are just going to be existing pole replacements. The need for it on page 4 is dealing with, generally speaking, data in our smartphones today. As of 2017 numbers, our smartphones generate 102 times more data than what the cell towers that we're used to were designed to handle. The cell towers are designed to handle our flip phones, and now we all have smartphones that use way more data. The next step in our data speed will be 5G technology. We're on 4G right now, and in order to get the speeds necessary for 5G, the issue within the networks right now is latency, and the biggest point within the network that creates latency is the connection between cell towers and your cell phone. So the goal is to bring the cell towers down to the ground level, and that's what we're doing with these small cells. All the equipment sits on a wood utility pole, and it's much closer in connection between you and your cell phone. And each one of these poles handles a far smaller number of actual cell phone connections. It covers a smaller area. You put more of them up, but they're much less intrusive than a cell tower was that we're used to. Where the cell tower might handle thousands of cell connections, these handle hundreds, and then relay those data back through the networks. As far as mobility status, we are certified local exchange carrier with the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission. In this situation, that doesn't matter as much, but that's the status that gives us the authority to place in the road right of way. The utility, in this situation, we're looking to put it on the city's own property to avoid the road right of way in this location. But that's our status, and that's a copy of the of our state Indiana regulation there on page 6. Kind of a holistic idea of what's happening. Think of the transport site in this situation as cell towers. The transport is a separate program that mobility has been pursuing. There's none of those in the region that we're pursuing at this time. In fact, the company across the board has drastically decreased our transport program. That was a 120-foot utility pole. In my region of South Bend, Fort Wayne, we're only pursuing one of those at this time. So think of a transport pole as a cell tower that's still existing today, and the small cells are the much smaller poles. There's an antenna that sits on top. Actually, there's a mock-up of it if you look at that page. And page 8 is what you're used to with cell technology, right? So page 9, that's what it actually is going to look like. At the top of the wood utility pole is the antenna. It's approximately 3 feet high and 4-inch diameter. Most of the way down the pole, you'll see the relay antenna. And then down farther is the remote radio unit. Farther down than that is an AC distribution, and then in the state of Indiana, there'll be a standard electrical meter that will be down at the very base of it. Indiana IURC requires that all hookups have an electrical meter. In some states, they're allowed to do bulk electric metering so that we don't have to have a meter on every single one of the poles that Indiana requires. So there'd be a meter on this. So what it does is the antenna that's at the top is what's going to relate to your cell phone. The radio that's down 2/3 of the way of the pole will actually take all that data from the cell phones, compile it into a single signal, and send that single signal back out through the existing network via the relay antenna, which is about the size of a top hat. The remote radio unit is roughly about that large, and it comes out about 6 inches. The AC distribution is about, about the size of this, and it only sticks out about 4 inches. And then you know what a standard electric meter looks like. And that's all the equipment that's on it. The total weight of it is about 50 pounds. As you see, there's plenty of space on that pole to handle that electrical line and that communication line when the police department decides to remove that other pole and reroute through this pole. Other examples of them out in the world, you see one that's been done in the village of River Grove, another one in PennDOT. Just to give examples of what they are. The one that we're proposing here is 50 foot, I'm guessing. That one in PennDOT, I would guess, is more like 60 or 70 feet. That one that's on page 9 is probably, looks like between 40 and 45 feet. It's slightly larger. we are adding a new pole, but in the long run, the goal is that an existing pole be removed and the equipment that's on that pole would be put on this one to reroute. And the only reason for that is that the police aren't ready to expand the parking lot, but this gives them the option to do that whenever they want to.
Okay, is that it for your initial presentation?
That's what I got for you.
Okay, thank you very much for the detail and the handout with the photographs. Do we have any questions from the board for the applicant at this time?
Mr. Dunn, with the antenna, the height of the structure would be just under 50 feet, is that correct? Or is
I believe so.
Is the antenna above that?
The construction drawings, I don't want to say incorrectly, I don't want to copy.
I read that to mean that the antenna attached would still be under 50 feet.
Yeah,
total.
the top of the antenna is 49 feet 10 inches.
Okay.
So the pole itself is slightly less.
How far down do you put the pole in terms
For a
of...
50-foot pole, it's a roughly 60-foot total pole, so it's 10 feet
10 feet
underground. The diameter on a 50-foot pole at ground level is 14 inches, 14.3 inches, I believe. Just slightly more than a foot thick. We use a Class A pole, which is the highest quality as far as wood utility poles.
Roger, how does that compare to the new AEP poles that are being erected throughout the city right now, height-wise?
Typically, the ones they're putting in now, unless they have something that they really need to go over, they're putting in 45s, 50s, or 55. And their standard practice, that's the length of the pole. Their standard practice is to vary it, it's 10% of the length of the pole plus an additional 2 feet. So a 50-foot pole, they would stick in the ground 7 feet. So it would be like 43 feet to the top of those.
So and these are the new poles that are like behind the library and the court building?
So depending on where they're at. Some of them aren't that tall, there's actually some that's a little taller. They put new ones, a few shorter ones down 8th Street over there. Some of those existing poles that are over there, those are 66-foot poles on 8th Street on the other side of our lot.
So it'll be shorter than those ones.
It's actually shorter than those.
Any additional questions from the board?
I guess one question, Mr. Dunn, you're co-locating with AEP, or you said that you were working to do so on the other locations. If there are 60-foot poles running on 8th Street, this is somewhere between 7th and 8th that you're talking about. Can you co-locate on one of those poles and still get the coverage that you're looking for?
This is a co-location in general, just that the other pole is not being removed at this time. So I would say this is in the same makeup as that. We're trying to do a co-location. It just happens that this pole was owned by the city, and it was very close to where we wanted to put our poles. So this was the best location to do that. We would have put exactly where the other pole was, except for that the police are looking at potentially expanding that parking lot.
And they're also kind of wanting to get it moved because it's potentially they can back into this one a little easier, the one, the existing one.
And if they want to move that overhead and electrical as soon as we have it in the ground, it's fine. But as far as waiting and capacity of the pole, we can do that too, as soon as they're interested.
And if I recall, and I could be mistaken, but is this the pole that originally you were talking about putting in the right-of-way on 7th Street?
I believe so. Again, the original application was before I was on board, but we looked at that, and we did look at on the west side of 7th Street, and then we saw this pole and said, well, let's just pursue that.
Okay. And I recall that at that time, and it was a different gentleman, I don't recall his name, but I think we encouraged him.
75 foot, right?
Well, it was a tall pole.
The original.
And we asked him to reconsider that and move it possibly over in the direction that you're headed.
Okay, Mr. Dunn, if nobody from the board has additional questions from you, we're going to open.
We're just talking one pole.
Yes. This is just an application for the one pole that will be located just to the west of the existing police parking lot.
So,
Ken wants to explain to him too about when you say co-locating with AEP, what the process.
So for the other three, when we co-locate, what we'll do, unless it's one of those new poles that are already basically at the same height, we'll look at a pole, and if it needs to be replaced, we would just basically give AEP a pole to put in place of one of those existing poles, and the exact same equipment would go up on their pole. It's a one-for-one replacement. And if they have a new pole, we can just go right on their pole.
And then AEP would attach to that pole also. They just would have a taller pole in that location.
But at this point, the application is not for the
No,
three
the other
additional.
three-
So you knew what
Right.
that meant.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, the other three, we're still working on finding the poles to do the co-locating on.
which was what the Board of Works requested
Yes.
mobility to do.
Yep. And, state statute may change, but we're not going to follow with that. We've already moved down the road to co-locating. We want to work with municipalities, and they ask for co-locating, we'll do co-locating.
The existing pole,
Yeah.
how far away from the existing pole is this new one?
It was about a car length, right? Because it's about a parking lot space, so it's 20, 25 foot? Yeah.
To the west?
To the west, towards the train tracks. The goal is that that pole wouldn't be so far away that they could still attach the Cobra head and light that parking lot as they wanted.
You can't go back real far because that railroad right away is like to the west side of the depot building. I mean, it's right on the building.
Okay.
Okay, and if we have no more questions from the board, at this time, the board will have one more opportunity to ask questions at the end. Thank you, Mr. Dunn, for that presentation. If you'd like to go ahead and return to your original seat, I'm going to now open up the comments for people in opposition. Those people that are in opposition, I would like you to, in an orderly manner, proceed to the table, identify yourself with your name and address, and keep in mind that we're going to try to limit this to 2 minutes per presentation because there are several people that look like they want to speak. So, please proceed.
I'm Susie Fillings. I'm one of the original Pensy Depot ladies. It was just about 3 years ago that I came before City Council and asked permission on behalf of the Pensy girls to voluntarily raise funds for the restoration of this depot. We were granted that request, and we began, and we raised over $100,000 for the restoration of this building. We put a lot of hard work into it, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. We took off paint ourselves. We cleaned out sludge out of the basement ourselves, sacked it, carried it up. We've got a lot of love for that building. There's a lot of history in that building. History that's going to go to our grandchildren and their children. Now, there's not a lot of historical buildings in our small town, so we do what we can do with what we have. And now that Pensy Depot is on the National Register of Historical Buildings, we don't want to see a pole on the property, especially at the site that they have chosen. We're not finished with the restoration of the outside of the building or the property. There is an old freight depot that we'd like to put on the side of the building that they're talking about erecting or doing the pole, the tower. There's a possibility of a trailhead going in there yet. The depot is rented out 3 to 4 times already per month. Now, although the capacity inside is limited to about 50 people, the outside is unlimited. There are graduation parties booked with tents that want to be erected on one side of the building or another for their graduation parties. Again, this is in the grassy area where they're talking about erecting the pole. With that said, there's so much that we want to, use the outside for, and I don't think Mr. Dunn realizes what that depot means to the community. Now that we've got it restored and we're on that National Register, to have a pole on the front side so visible to our building. So we'd like to see if you please could find another location for that pole.
Okay, thank you. Sandy?
I'm Sandy Collier, also a committee member. And Susie's right, we have put a lot of time and effort into this project. I myself have over 800 hours of volunteer time put into this, and it keeps building. Each of the committee members could tell you the same thing. It's obvious that we do not want to see the pole go in next to the depot. We think that it will be a visual intrusion to the atmosphere that is being created by the depot. And we think that it will diminish the historical integrity of the site. The city recently purchased the freight depot, the historic freight depot. And it's my understanding that it's just a matter of time before it's put back together and will probably be on that site. If the pole exists, it's going to dictate where we are allowed to put that freight depot. We just think that it's a poor place to put it. And I do have one question. Since we are on the historical registry now, I'm just wondering if Mr. Dunn and his company have gotten a Section 106 clearance from the DNR for this site.
Is the building or the lot itself on the registry?
Yes. Well,
And I don't try to be contradictory, but it is
well, I don't know how you could probably it's just the building that's the historical registry, but how can you separate it from its environment?
according to them, that is a significant difference.
Anything from the mayor, the building department, or the city attorney to clarify that question?
I know that if a historical building designation has been made, that there is a procedure. In fairness to Mr. Dunn, I think that designation occurred just within the last couple months, which probably wasn't even something that you were aware of. So,
But it has been 2 years in the making. Had they inquired, they probably would have found out that it was.
well, I know the application, the pursuit of that has been ongoing, but there was no assurance that it was going to be given until we actually received it. So, you know, one thing, if there needs to be some clarification, the board could continue the hearing to give Mr. Dunn an opportunity to verify that there is a need for this or there is not, and if there is a need, that the clearance is given.
We did speak to the DNR, and they did tell us that it would be required.
Well, again, I think it's appropriate, if you wish, you could continue the hearing to give Mr. Dunn and Mobility the opportunity to communicate with DNR and either get that clearance or determine that it's not necessary.
So, and
How close is the proposed pole going to be to your
Well,
bill? Is it in front? Is it to the
to
side?
the west, if you go to the side, which is the area where we had designated would be a good place to set up tents for overflow.
So it's in,
one big city.
directly in back of
And I don't think,
the depot?
I think there's a distinction between a parcel and a building.
It's between
Two different.
the depot and the police station.
Right where the
You know,
Well, where
I have
if Madison Street went straight ahead, it's really in the Madison Street right away.
Choose to go forward, you can determine
when
that,
we were doing work
you know,
over there,
whether DNR requires it or not. It's not a
But
concern
I
for
had to
you.
move another one in front of the depot, and I just didn't want to push the issue. I pushed now, I would have.
Well, so I guess the question I would have is this proposed location on the depot property, or is it on the police department?
Now we're moving it, I can't answer that. I don't know exactly where it is.
Roger, can you answer that?
Well, I'm not sure where that property line goes either, but from where the existing pole is, they're just moving it straight back west. To me, it'd be more out of the road where they're planning to move it than where it is now.
As far as side.
Please, the Board of Works, and I apologize for speaking out of line if I am. Board of Zoning Appeals, thank you. Is that Board of Works? I can offer to move it 15 feet further to the south tonight without it being any issue in getting it farther away from the depot. Anything more than that, it becomes something that I can't offer under my guidance, but I can do, that's more than 15 feet. I can do 15 feet tonight if
That puts it more in proximity of the police station.
Right.
Yeah, right now, I literally went literally due west, because that's what the police department asked. But we can move it 15 feet farther to south away from the depot to make things easier for the station, and probably actually would be even better for lighting of that parking lot, to put that pole more in the center of their existing paved area for that culvert. I can do 15 feet tonight.
Okay, we will revisit that once we get done with public comments. Want to try to make sure that we adhere to the agenda. Thank you, ladies. Anybody else that would like to speak in opposition? Just want to make sure everybody had... Clyde, come on up.
Al Bedwell, 107 South Sill. After this last conversation, and I think you said 15 foot south of where the pole is now?
15 feet south where we're proposing.
Where you're proposing that, wouldn't that be in the middle of the Madison Street extension if they go across the railroad track?
What's your question there, Alan?
Actually, I think...
If they move the pole from where it is now south,
Here's the proposed pole.
Madison Street is
He's talking about
right
on this
across
side.
the railroad track to the other side.
The right-of-ways through
Wouldn't that be
here.
right in the middle?
No, it'd be farther south.
It actually improves that situation, because right now it's sitting right in the middle of what would be the Madison Street right-of-way.
It is.
Yes.
By eyeballing it?
Well, I've got a city map.
If you eyeball that pole, it's right on the north side of the street. The one
No.
that's in there now.
Well, the right-of-way is different than the location of the street itself.
Right, and this is the proposed location of the new one, which is sitting dead center in Madison Street. So his 15 feet would improve that situation.
This is the police station. This is their right.
Yeah.
I don't think that is right here, so they're moving it down.
Well, no, but it was talked
It's off
about
of there.
at one
Yeah,
time.
nothing in it.
when
There was discussion years ago.
The 15 feet would move it further away from the depot. It would light the city lot, the police department lot better, and it's out of that right-of-way. Anything else, Clyde?
Well, the only thing I have to say is I've been living down there for 35 years, and we got the police station in there now. The depot is a historical place now. The city added 8-foot sidewalks from Monroe Street to Adams. They put up nice lighting along the street, and now they're going to start plopping poles down there. It just seems like it's I don't know if it's going to take away from the aesthetics or not, but it just seems kind of fun. And I think the neighbors are happy with the way it is now. But, do we have to start planning? I was on the internet for 3.5 hours on Sunday, and I was looking at this company and one of their competitors. And there's several states around the country that are actually taking these people to court because they're not putting the poles where they planned on putting the poles. They're in right-of-ways. And I thought when the city passed the resolution a month or so ago that if they wouldn't allow them on the right-of-ways, it was pretty much a done deal.
Well, what happened at the Board of Works meeting that you're referring to is Mobility had requested the right to locate within the right-of-way. The city looked at that and determined that because the right-of-ways are so congested with existing utilities that we would prefer that no more poles be located there, and rather, if they could, co-locate, which, as I understand, they're doing.
Which is on
That's in the right-of-way. Yes, and that's within the right-of-way. The problem is, and Mr. Dunn alluded to this, there is pending legislation right now that would basically give companies such as Mobility the unfettered right to use our right-of-ways, and we have very limited say in where they put poles.
I read that bill today,
Yeah.
and it's not going to happen until November at least.
Well, no. No. That bill is in conference committee right now, and it's tied up in negotiations on road funding and the budget. So the outcome of that bill is somewhat tied to that.
Once this month is over, it's not going to happen until next year.
It has to be, it has to be passed by a deadline, which is coming up, I think, at the end of the week. But I think that, at this point, the city asked Mobility to reconsider where they were originally going to put this pole, which was in the buyer's front yard. And they did. And we asked them to consider co-locating, and in the end, this will be a co-location. It wouldn't be immediately because the light pole isn't going to be removed immediately, but in the future it will be. So they have met the requirements of the city in those two respects. If they have moved it further to the south, hopefully that addresses the concern that was raised by Sandy and Susie. So, to me, and I'm speaking here because I don't have a vote in this, but it seems that they have tried to work with the city where in other communities that hasn't always been the case. Not so much with Mobility, but other companies that put these type of poles in. So, it's a question at this point of, the board has a decision to make, and I'm not in favor of poles springing up all over the place. That's why we asked for a co-location to begin with. It makes more sense if you can use existing poles and provide the technology that they're offering. And that technology is something that's going to be needed in the future. There's no question about it. I went down to Indianapolis and participated in a work study with attorneys from throughout the state on this. AT&T's putting $20 million of infrastructure improvement in downtown Indianapolis. That isn't going to happen in Decatur, but in time, that investment to a lesser degree is going to come here. And we want to try to work with companies that choose to come to Decatur. We would rather do that than to be confrontational.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Is there any additional people that would like to make comments in opposition to the application? With not hearing any, is there anybody that would like to speak in support of the application?
Mary Byers, 622 Madison Street. I'm not exactly in support of these poles, but the alternative is going to end up in my yard, outside my son's window, and first thing they ask when you come to a fertility clinic is, do you carry your cell phone in your pocket? And I don't know medically what these poles will do, but I know that a pole outside a 5-year-old's room that's collecting data and cell phone transmissions isn't probably the best thing in the world. I want grandbabies someday. I understand where the Pennsy ladies, they put a lot of money and effort, but so did we, into our property, and I think it sets precedence for the city if you say, no, we won't let you put it in people's yards, their front yard, let's put it on public property. I really appreciate the city for stepping up and doing that for our family. I can't express it enough, actually. I'm not in favor of the poles, but if they have to go somewhere, I appreciate them not going in my yard or anybody else's yard for that matter. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else that would like to speak in favor of the application? Please come forward and identify yourself.
I don't want to speak for, but you haven't called for someone who's not neither for or against. I just wanted to ask a question to Mr. Dunn, and that was...
Can you please identify yourself, sir?
Ken Meyer, I'm a resident of Decatur. Mr. Dunn mentioned earlier that they agreed to co-locate the other 3 poles. And my question to him, and I'm going to be blunt and bold about it, is if this legislation passes and things change and you, at the end of this week, and you can put them wherever you so well please, are you giving us your word that you will still co-locate them? And are you in the position that you can make that judgment?
I probably am not in a position to speak on the mobility's stake on that, but I will do everything as a permitting manager in the region to move forward with that. And I do not believe we have any plans on going back from that. We have gone down the path of doing the co-location, and AEP seems to be a good partner in doing that. So there is no...
None elsewhere?
They originally hadn't offered up the ability to do a pole replacement, and that came out as of this week, which, if they're doing that, shows that they are much more inclined to be willing to move forward with this. So I don't know that candidates have been specifically selected for those other ones yet, but we're working with AEP to do that, and we are moving down the path of co-location. We're not going to go away from that. Now, does that mean that we know for certain that I have locations for each one of those 3 at this time? No. But I think we will. The area in which you can place these is not large, but probably large enough to find a AEP pole, since they're everywhere in this community anyway, that meets the need. There's restrictions within AEP. We can only be on there's class 1, 2, and 3. And I can't remember if it's class 1 or class 3, but the least powerful of their lines is what we're allowed to co-locate on. I can't remember which extreme that is. And those are what's in, those are the most plentiful type. So it shouldn't be an issue. And we'll move forward.
I would like to clarify one point on when you say pole replacement. That's where you're seeking additional height, and you're asking them to put a taller pole in, so you've got room for your antenna on top, and they can locate below that?
Not necessarily, because their pole may already meet the need. What they now allow is that a pole they will allow a replacement pole up to 50 feet. If their pole that's there already is 50 feet, then there wouldn't be a replacement.
Okay.
We do often offer a new pole only because we use a higher class pole. The antenna doesn't like sway. So we offer a higher class pole, so in other words, it's a relatively new and high quality pole. If they're existing, we offer even at the same height to put in a new pole, they can do that.
And then the other question I have, and this is more for Tim, I guess, is if tonight you table or decline their application, yet this week the legislation passes, then are we looking at the possibility of mobility coming back and saying, we're going to put this in Mary Byers' yard?
Absolutely.
Or anywhere they so well please?
The way the bill was drafted in the Senate, it pretty much tied the hands of the city with very limited exceptions. Basically rewrites the zoning code. And in essence, if that legislation were enacted into law, then Mobility and other companies could come into the city and say, we're going to locate a pole in your right-of-way here. And we have very limited ability to say, no, we don't want that. That's why, at this point, I appreciate the fact that Mobility is attempting to to work with the city on this issue, rather than just say, too bad, we're going to do it wherever we want.
Where I'm going next, and that is, I guess I would say that while I don't have a vote in this, I guess I would support it as long as they're willing to move the 15 feet to the south. In the effort of establishing a good working relationship with them, so that when they come back, regardless of the legislation, that hopefully they would co-locate on existing poles rather than just putting them anywhere that they so well please.
Yeah, and so everybody understands, what happened is the bill got out of the Senate with these, what was very much objectionable to municipalities, got over to the House amended the bill in a number of ways that tried to meet the needs of companies such as mobility, but also took into consideration concerns raised by municipalities. That is now in a conference committee, and as I understand, Senator Hirschman, who's the author of the bill on the Senate side, has refused to accept the House amendments, so those have been stripped from the House version, and the issue is it going to go back to both houses for a final vote? If it does, and it goes to the governor for his signature, if it's signed, then companies such as Mobility or the major providers of cell technology could come in and they could establish their own poles throughout the right-of-way, and we could have a proliferation of those. I'm not saying that that's going to happen immediately in Decatur, but it could. And it's certainly a possibility in bigger communities where it makes more sense for these companies to do it. So,
And just within my powers, my abilities as permitting manager, which are limited, but whatever I can do, I will try my hardest to make sure that we only do co-locating in Decatur. That's the best I can offer on terms of that. As far as the original proposed location of this, that was in basically, the Myers yard, Buyer, thank you, Buyer's yard. Mobility has learned their lesson. First, I think Mobility owes them an apology. I wasn't involved at the time, but that is not where we're trying to put these things today. We are trying to be in the rubber right of way, but we are doing our best where possible to either not do new poles in residential or at least, and try to do co-locations in those things, wherever we have agreements. So I think Mobility is to a certain extent, at least I apologize for that original proposed location.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Meyer. One more request. Is there anybody that has an additional comment? If not, we're going to open the floor up to the board for their final questions. Anybody like to speak in favor or opposition? Hearing none, going to move forward. Any additional questions from the board for the applicant?
Yeah, I have. If you move that pole 15 feet, I'm not real sure where all the pavement is. That will be on the west side of where the parking lot, so to speak, is.
It basically already is, because what was gravel has already been paved. So it's kind of like at the corner of where they paved right now.
So
we'll just move it right down along the back edge there.
So it's going to be closer to
Towards the building.
Toward the building. Okay.
It's not really a question, but maybe a comment. By moving it 15 feet south, it appears to me that just on the drawing that it now becomes a part of the police department property rather than the depot property. So,
I don't know if there's ever been a delineation.
My understanding by the GIS that it's all technically city property,
Right.
just that the depot
But
is run by the...
It gives the appearance, I think, is what you were
Right,
saying,
I
John,
agree
is
with
that it
that.
looks more that it's tied to the police station as opposed to the depot.
It might be such a thing that the city can work that out, because we're still gonna have a night light on there.
That overhead. The
Mhm.
Cobra.
Yeah.
And
Maybe they could vary that.
we are planning to, we will most likely bore our power as long as it's feasible in that location. We try to bore wherever possible. So
Maybe we can feed power to that light.
we probably could, at that time, when we're boring, we're gonna bore our electrical, I assume a overhead runs on.
The only other thing I know that runs on that pole is there is some communication.
Yeah.
To go to the police station.
And I don't know exactly what's on that. But that, the pole, the existing pole can, probably moving 50 feet even helps a little bit in terms of that wire not impacting the depot, particularly if it did go through the area.
And Mr. Dunn, I'm assuming this, but I probably should have you stated on the record, the co-location of the city's equipment on the pole would be done at no cost to the city?
Absolutely. Correct. Yep, no, they, I mean, they need to provide the overhead and they'll be their responsibility for electrical of that overhead. But yeah, we will not charge for the overhead. And I can't imagine it's very expensive to relocate it.
Okay, a question for the city attorney. Does the DNR designation on the National Registry of Historic Places have any bearing on our decision?
My personal opinion is the designation is on the building, not on the entire property. So I don't know that the Section 106 applies to the entire property. I think it applies to the building clearly. And if this were near the building itself, it may have an impact. But the location that you're now describing, especially with it being moved away, my personal opinion is that you probably can move forward if you wish.
In my experience, I was zoning administrator for the city of Auburn, and the Auburn for Duesenberg Museum is registered in the National Registry, and that's one of those situations where the building and a very limited around the building, and everything beyond that doesn't fall within. I think this is probably going to be intense situation.
Do we need any action from the board to move forward in regard to the DNR issue? It's a moot point.
Yeah, I think unless the board indicates that it wishes to table the action on the petition.
If you so wished, it's no problem with us if you just made that a condition that we research that, we would anyway. So you can make that a condition to approval that...
The granting of it would be subject to getting such approval if it's required.
We do that type of thing anyway, when it's in historic districts, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
We already know that process, so we can look into it as a condition anymore. And I can, well, as long as it happens for a month, I can let Raj know that we did that. After that, I'll have to find out who to contact.
Okay.
Now, he says he's retiring, he's not.
Oh, is that how that works?
We're not letting him.
Any additional questions from the board? Any clarifications?
None.
No.
Are we ready to move forward with the reading of the special exception?
I would suggest that you require 3 conditions. The first is that it be relocated 15 feet to the south. The second, that co-location of city equipment would be at no cost to the city. And third, that it would be made subject to either getting a waiver of the Section 106 requirement or getting clearance under that process.
Mayor's got a question on that.
Well, actually, sure, you could ask me. I guess the address that is going on right now is actually the address of the depot.
We'll have to make an address for it anyway for electric meter. So it'll have its own meter address.
AEP wants an address for every...
We'll be creating an address for the pole.
It won't be the depot's address.
Nope. It'll have its own address. What's the depot's address?
Pardon?
What's the depot's address?
111.
What's the police address?
I don't know.
It'll probably end up with a half address, I think, or an A road.
Yeah, they won't go with that. We'll have to give...
Well, the depot would be north, the police station would be south, because Madison Street is the divider.
Yeah.
So it'll be a new...
You could go in.
It would be like 101 or something,
New south address, yeah.
and that's the
You
post
determine
office,
that,
right?
Roger?
Yeah.
You determine the address. Yeah.
Pretty well.
Yeah. Just make sure it doesn't match anything else.
Okay. I'm going to read the special exceptions. As before, we will poll the board. Yes is an agreement that the special exception will move forward. No would be to disagree.
So, we're in agreement on the conditions that our attorney has stated.
Discussion?
Are there any other conditions that the board
I mean,
wishes
I'm
to
just-
impose? Yeah.
Saying that part of the record, we agree, I agree with that.
I do too.
Okay. I agree.
Okay, and at the end, before we grant it, we will go through and review the restrictions one more time. So, special exception. Number one, the establishment, maintenance, or operation of the special exception will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare.
Yes.
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 4 yes. The special exception will not be injurious to the use or enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted, nor substantially diminish or impair property value within the neighborhood.
Yes.
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 4 yes. The establishment of the special exception will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding property for uses permitted in the district.
Yes.
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 4 yes. Adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary facilities have been or are being provided.
Yes.
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 4 yes. Adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide ingress or egress so designed to minimize traffic congestion on the public streets.
Yes.
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 4 yes. The special exception will be located in a district where such use is permitted and where all other requirements set forth in 150.193 applicable to the special exception will be met.
Yes.
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 4 yes. Therefore, it is the decision of the board that the petition for the special exception is granted subject to the conditions.
That the pole be relocated 15 feet to the south of the proposed location, that the co-location of city equipment on the pole would be allowed free of charge, and third, that the grant would be subject to DNR clearance under Section 106 or a waiver from DNR of that requirement.
Therefore, the decision of this board that the petition for special exception is granted or denied.
Granted.
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 It is granted. Mr. Dunn, thank you very much for a very well-prepared presentation and your willingness to work with all parties involved. Special exception, you've already got that. With that, we still have some additional business to take care of. Old business, any old business before the BZA that we need to discuss?
This is...
Yeah, there was. No old business? Any new business before the board this evening?
The only thing, Alfredine Woodworking's proposing maybe a new building down there on their site between
12th and 13th Street? No, 11th and 12th.
10th and 11th.
Okay.
One of those streets, it's just, they're proposing a standalone building somewhere. I haven't seen the site plan or anything yet. I think it's just for warehouse. I don't believe there's any restaurant in it. Shit over a pole. And any, it's just, well, what got me? I don't know where they're proposing to put that. I think more down towards the 10th Street side.
And this is going to even be
Yeah.
more away
Okay.
from their location.
Ways of them, but
Any additional new business?
Good job,
the
city
Casey's
attorney.
convenience store. and
Yes.
station, they'll be,
Where's that gonna be, Roger?
huh?
Where's that gonna be?
It's on the southwest corner of 13th and Adams. Where
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That would be Don Ray's lot.
Yeah.
Across from Dwight Davis.
Right.
Yeah,
Make sure you're here for that.
I'll be here, don't worry.
Yeah, on the Casey's FYI that you sent us out, they asked questions about liquor and tobacco licenses. That has nothing to do with this board, correct?
Yeah, that doesn't go through us.
Okay. The same with their question about TIF and tax abatement.
I'll check with,
Alcoholic Beverage Board?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's one.
I'll check with Tom Pittman, but I don't think
Yeah.
the,
Who's the third one there? Somebody from Vern or?
I'll check with Tom Pittman on TIF financing and tax abatements, but I don't think it applies to commercial structures.
Do they have a...
And even if it doesn't, I don't know if
Just
we've
get
ever
one
done
of
it.
them guys' numbers?
I don't know if you go through the auditor's office?
Today.
Huh?
I emailed Kenneth,
Did you?
but I haven't heard back from him.
Okay, and that was all of the questions. And the Casey's thing had come before this group one previous time, correct? As they were making their initial inquiry?
I think so.
Or did,
We might have just brought it up.
I
okay.
think we brought it up.
We
today.
had a little
Comment.
discussion, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any additional information? Any updates on Roger's pending retirement party?
The new guy's supposed to be here tonight.
Yeah, we've hired a new gentleman, his name is Kurt Whitty. He was a 23-year employee at All American Homes. He has an associate degree in architectural engineering. He was an inspector at All American Homes, an engineer. And he's certified in, most of the building code.
Numerous sections of the ICC building codes,
I've heard that name somewhere.
I called his references. I called people who weren't references that worked with him at All American, and they said we could not go wrong with him. He's a very good individual. Very, Roger said it on the interview with him. I thought he seemed very personable, humble. He's an Army veteran, I think 8 years in the Army. Good guy.
Well, good.
So,
When is your targeted date, Roger?
31st of May.
yeah, good guy.
Do we have any pending meetings before the 31st of May?
Not BZA, maybe Plan
Yes,
Commission.
now, we might get that Casey through here for their initial...
Well, I think we should, just for Roger.
No, we should just for the other guy.
Well, and to make sure that it gets on a matter of public record, I would like to say thank you to Roger for the almost 15 years that I've worked with him on BZA and Plan Commission and everything he's contributed.
You've been
So,
on 15 years?
Fred Ish talked me into this a long time ago, 2002.
How long have you been in this position, Roger?
22.
22 years?
Yeah.
Well, thank you. You did a nice job. I really appreciate what you've done for the city.
Now, before I became city attorney, I had a lot of opportunities to work with Roger representing people that have matters before the city, and he's great to work with. He and I go way back.
Yeah, and there was no such thing as a stupid question when Kitson was asking it. He was always very patient with me. So, anything else from the board this evening? I want to thank everybody involved in tonight's meeting. It was a great example of how this is supposed to work.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate Mr. Dunn. I think just a little thing of moving that pole 15 feet to the south was a very deciding factor.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
We stand adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen.